I can speak of truth and it will sound as foolishness. There are many truths spoken and revealed by God's servants that cannot be heard because a truth can sound as foolishness to the hearer when sin is present in their lives. One day, the disciples went into town to get lunch. They brought it back to sit down and to eat with Jesus. When they returned and found Jesus standing beside the well of Jacob, they began urging him to eat something, to which Jesus replied, saying, "I have food to eat you know nothing about." This, of course, made the disciples ask each other, "Did he already eat something?" Jesus responded, saying, "My food is to do the will of him who sent me, to finish his work." God spoke to Isaiah the prophet, saying much the same thing as Jesus spoke to the apostles. "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways, says the Lord." When sin is present in a man's life, God makes it so that that man cannot see and hear, so that he will trust in empty words. In 2019, the Lord spoke to me saying, there will be war in America. Again, in early 2020, the Lord spoke to me again saying, before this year will be out, there will be war. Let's listen to how that word was delivered at that time. Here it is again.
"My son, before this year is out, there will be war." There you have it. God has spoken. Will his people pray?
Now, when the year 2020 passed and I did not see war, I was perplexed and began to doubt many things God was speaking to me. Finally, I took this matter to the Lord in prayer. In response, here's what the Lord said. "My son, when I use the word devastation, I mean complete destruction. When I say war, I mean vengeance upon my enemies. When I say calamities, I release my judgments. When I say purging and refining, I mean bringing through the fire by a way you do not know, a way by which you would not go. When I say cry aloud and spare not, it means sound the trumpet." Now, let's go back to the words of Isaiah the prophet. Cry aloud, spare not. Lift up your voice like a trumpet. Make your voice heard on high. Now, I want to go over to Ezekiel and read. This is from Ezekiel chapter 12. Here it is. "The word of the Lord came to me saying, Son of man, you dwell in the midst of a rebellious house, which has eyes to see, but does not see, and ears to hear, but does not hear, for they are a rebellious house." In this passage, God plainly says, Ezekiel, when sin and rebellion are present in a man, he will be unable to see and hear, even though he has eyes and ears. So here is what God told the prophet to do. "Son of man, prepare your belongings for captivity, and go into captivity by day in their sight. You shall go from your place into captivity to another place in their sight. It may be they will consider, though they are a rebellious house. By day you shall bring out your belongings in their sight as though going into captivity, and at evening you shall go in their sight, like those who go into captivity." In 2020, this is what God told us to do. And so it was, I began preparing And by the following year, we sold our house and gave away all our property and took our clothes and a few small items of carry. We left Pennsylvania to go down to the streets of Waco. God had commanded that we go through 5 cities. Here they are: Waco, Brownsville, Mobile, a small town in Louisiana, and Jackson, Mississippi. Now, we completed that final town in Jackson last week. We went to Jackson. In Jackson, we didn't do anything as far as work on the streets, but we were obedient to take our things in the sight of everyone who would see and go there. All of these travels seemed to me like we accomplished nothing. We mostly stayed on the street, at truck stops, low-rent motels. It was a lot of hardship. During all the movements between locations, I didn't thoroughly understand why God would have us do these things and put ourselves under such hardships and homelessness. Now, allow me to finish this passage in Ezekiel. So these people Ezekiel was prophesying to had eyes to see and ears to hear, but could not do either because of their sin and rebellion against God. So God wanted Ezekiel to grab all the stuff and carry it in the sight of the people like he was a captive, and so that the people might consider what he was doing. God had already told Ezekiel, "By day you shall bring out your belongings in their sight, as though you're going into captivity, and in the evening you shall go in their sight, like those who go away into captivity. Dig through the wall in their sight and carry your belongings out through it. In their sight you shall bear them on your shoulders and carry them out at twilight. You shall cover your face so that you cannot see the ground, for I have made you a sign to the house of Israel." Ezekiel's actions were meant to be a sign that testified against people who could not see and hear what God was saying. God wanted to judge these people, but he needed a messenger willing to go tell them not only by words, but by demonstrations of the Spirit, so they would be without excuse in the day of judgment. Now allow me to continue. Ezekiel says, "So I did what I was commanded. I brought out my belongings by day as though I was going into captivity, and in the evening I dug through the wall with my hand. I brought my property out at twilight. I bore it on my shoulder in their sight. And in the morning, the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, has the house of Israel, that rebellious house, said to you, What are you doing? Say to them, I am a sign to you. As I have done, so shall it be done to you. You shall be carried away into captivity. The prince who is among you shall bear his belongings on his shoulder at twilight and go out. He shall dig through the wall to carry his property through it. He shall cover his face so that he cannot see the ground with his eyes. I will spread my net over him. He shall be caught in my snare. I will bring him to Babylon, to the land of the Chaldeans, yet he will not see it, though he should die there. I will scatter to every wind all who are around him to help him, all his troops. I will draw out the sword after him. Then they shall know I am the Lord. So there you have it. Let me bring this thing to a conclusion. The scriptures say, a servant will not be corrected by mere words. The people I dwell among speak of having plans of glory, power, and victory of war. They talk about the golden age of their nation, but it won't be there. God is doing this thing. I close with these words. I charge every man to bend the knee. Humble yourself under the mighty hand of God. It may be God will hide you in the day of his fierce anger.